Duncan, thank you very much for that kind introduction. Very eloquent of you, even though it's virtual. It's good to be here, and thank you very much for joining us. I can see a couple of faces, a couple of people that I know. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to the series that's coming up. And who would have thought in 2019, if we had to go back a year ago, that we'd be plonked into the middle of this incredible storm and doing life like extremely differently. One of the things that Zoom conferencing has done for me is it's forced me to wear glasses. I don't usually wear glasses, but I have to be up front right now, so I've got to wear these glasses. So I am, as Duncan said, I'm a professional adventurer. I've been on many expeditions all over this planet of ours. I'm just getting this up and running here quickly. Yes, so adventure has done a lot for me in my life. It really has enabled me to surround myself with an incredible group of people. And I'm just going to go through this quickly because I really believe that adventure is an important part of our lives. Obviously, you know, speaking as a professional adventurer, that's more obvious for me in my life. But it really has allowed me to surround myself with a good team of people. It's allowed me to teach people all over this world and inspire people about passion and perseverance and how important it is in their lives and in their businesses. It's allowed me to travel to some of the world's most extreme places, the highest, driest, coldest, wettest, windiest, most beautiful, and most rugged parts of this planet. And it's given me the time to really test myself physically and mentally. And I've learned an incredible amount of lessons during this time. Adventure has taught me to embrace suffering, and I'm going to be talking about that in the six sessions that we have over the coming weeks. I've suffered much. I've cried on some of my expeditions. I've laughed hysterically for days and days. I've danced on some of Africa's magical shore lakes. I've had long conversations with God and watched his galactic outbursts. I've trembled in some of this Earth's mighty storms and tempests, like the one we're finding ourselves in at the moment. I've made friends with fish and birds. Now, you may think I'm a little crazy, but some of these stories over the next few weeks are going to come out. And these fish and birds have really helped me, and my interactions with some of these animals have really helped me through some of my expeditions. I have trekked through some incredible avatar-like forests, come face to face with rare and dangerous animals. I have, so to speak, got lost in the poles, lost in wonder, not physically lost, otherwise I wouldn't be here, in the South Pole and in the North Pole. I've dared greatly, and I've risked much. Is this starting to sound like your lives now? I've triumphed, and I have failed. But in short, in everything that I've done in my life, I've really sought out the adventure in what I do. And I suppose this is specifically important for this first personal mastery course or session that I'm having with you right now, because we really are living in a world that is changing. And I love this photograph because this was a photograph we took on our trip up to Svalbard, where we did a dog sledding expedition. And this polar bear is on this piece of ice, and its world has really got small around it. And it's kind of metaphorically speaking the same with us. So it's very difficult for us to really adapt and help our teams adapt, and the people and our families that we surround ourselves with, to this changing environment. It's become more and more difficult. This planet has been in a tempest for a while. I mean, even before COVID, the way we live, the way we operate is unsustainable. The economic inequality is indefensible. The way we travel and the way we choose to eat and the way we deal with waste simply cannot continue with the way we are doing it at the moment. We were already in a storm before 2020, and all the conferences that I've spoken at all over the world The environments that people are operating in are constantly in flux. They are dynamic. But the cyclone in 2020 has just got real. I'm sure we're all a little bit tired of the whole COVID conversation. But it is real for us, and it is changing us. For everyone, everywhere. We're going to be in the storm and a series of storms for a long time coming. This will be a multi-day ultra marathon as opposed to a 100-meter sprint. I think we're all working that out now in any case. This pandemic has been a catalyst for change. It can be our greatest blessing or our greatest curse. What will it be? When we look back at history, our personal history and that of the planet, a decade from now, 5 years from now, we will give an account of us and our personal actions and the way we handle our lives, families, and businesses during this time. What was that story going to be? And how is it going to sound to other people? Well, we get to craft that story. I want to share stories with you today and lessons that I've learned that I really believe are going to help you survive the storm, and not only survive it, but begin to thrive in it. And hopefully that we will emerge stronger and more full of empathy and passion and resilience than ever before. We will need to come out of the storm better human beings, better individuals. Our businesses need to be run more efficiently. And collectively, there are things that we can do and must do to make sure that this happens. So what are we to do? What am I to do? To emerge from the storm scarred. That is what's going to happen. And shaken, but, and I love this, because this is important, we will emerge from this storm more formidable and changed for the better. How are we to survive it and thrive in it again? Well, I can only look to the storms that I've survived and have endured, back to the dark abyss of despair that I've been in so many times, and fear that I've had in the past, and emerge from this in hope, finding clues that will help me navigate this terrifying but not entirely unfamiliar territory. And slowly the memory returns of the need to take advantage of the storm, to use it as an opportunity, as a grappling hook to propel myself and others forward towards a worthy goal. So there's just 4 things that I really want to talk about today. But before we touch on these 4 things, let's just quickly look at that word success. If I had to ask each one of you right now what your definition of success was, I bet you I would get 5 or 6 or 7 different answers. For me, success, true success, is being able to achieve that vision and that dream that you have for yourself personally and professionally. Harvard Business School did a study on success. They wanted to find out what are the common characteristics of successful people and businesses that knit them together, despite hardship, despite the storms, despite everything around them. And at the end of their study, they found that all the people and the businesses they studied, there wasn't one principle that they all used. But with 93% of the participants, they found one characteristic that was a significant predictor in that person's or business's ability to achieve and sustain success. And it was this one thing. And if you look at your screens at the top, you will see it. Pasbait. Perseverance. Grit. Nyamazela. It's a good Eastern Cape Xhosa word for it. So if you look at successful people and businesses, the most important factor that has enabled them to be successful is the ability to be resilient. So I'll get back to it. I don't know what happened there. So please excuse that, Jane. I mean, that's awful. So the Greeks have a word called kairos. And kairos basically means a moment in time that it's an opportunity that comes our way that we either get to see or we don't get to see. And if we see it, we either have the opportunity to take that and use it or not. And if we take that opportunity and use it, it changes our lives forever. So our ability at the moment to recognize opportunities that come our way. Now, we are absolutely able to, during this time, during the stormy time, this COVID time, metaphorically speaking, there are opportunities that will come our way. And you've seen, I'm sure you've all been on social media, there are so many conspiracy theorists out there and so many people talking about what's happening in COVID. And if you listen to all the stories that people are saying, I mean, you'd pretty much, and if you took them to heart, and especially the negative ones, you could go in this downward spiral. Now, the idea behind Kairos is that these opportunities, you know, you'll hear people saying, oh, they were so lucky that they had the right opportunity at the right time. And I don't believe that. I believe that we all have opportunities. And these Kairos moments come past us, and we either get to recognize them or we don't. But one of the things that really helps us recognize these moments is our ability, and there are many. So I'm just going to give you the one thing, probably for me the most important one, is our ability to focus on the positive things that are happening around us all the time. A little bit earlier, you saw in that presentation those birds and the fish that I was with. Now, I want to tell you a quick story about that because it's relevant for Kairos. During my solo row across the Atlantic Ocean, I spent 76 days rowing a 7.6 meter boat across the Atlantic Ocean. I had one storm, and it lasted 6 days and 5 nights. And during that storm, for the first 3 days, it was just hugely tumultuous. My boat was being thrown around. I was absolutely terrified. There's no more terrifying place on this planet than being on a 7.6 meter rowing boat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And on day 3, I woke up in the morning. It felt like my parachute anchor was pulling my boat apart. I got out of my boat quickly just to get to the front to have a look at the connection. And as I got out, as I stepped into my footwell, there was this juvenile storm petrel, an amazing bird, but it was going to die. My boat was being thrown around like a cork in a rapid. So I took this bird and I put it inside my cabin, not realizing what an incredible thing this was going to be for the next 3 days. Because as soon as I brought that bird into my boat, the focus changed from me and the fear around what was happening in that storm to me now going, oh my goodness, I've got this little bird in my boat and I need to be looking after this bird. Because every time the boat would roll and pitch, it's a tiny little bird, so I'm going to kill it if I land on it. So everything that was happening inside my brain was now focused on this little bird. So instead of the fear and, oh my goodness, what am I going to do during a storm and I'm not going to survive this thing, it now became about Simon. Now, I named the bird Simon after Lady Blacksmith Mbaza and Paul Simon's song. I don't know if you know the song, Homeless. It was homeless and needed a place to stay. So Simon stayed with me for those days, for those 3 days in the boat. And had it not been for Simon, I'm not 100% sure what would have happened to me during that time. See, it absolutely took my focus away from that storm. When Edmund Hillary and Tenzin Norgay got off Mount Everest, they were interviewed by a BBC reporter. And one of the first things they said to this BBC reporter was, it wasn't the mountain we conquered, it was ourselves. And isn't that so true as we go forward? I mean, my book that I've written, The 8th Summit, is all about that. You know, mountaineers want to climb the 7 highest summits in the world, but there's one other summit that we all need to conquer, and that is ourselves. So this bird was helping me conquer myself. So I really believe that with these Kairos moments, if we can just do this one thing, focus on the good things that are happening around us, focus on the things that we can do in order to make us better at what we do, and do those things well, then our chances of being able to see and recognize these Kairos moments would be much greater. The second thing that I want to speak to you about is discipline. And this is, and over the 8 weeks that we've been in lockdown right now, I've actually monitored myself, and it's been quite an incredible thing. As soon as we went into lockdown, and I've noticed this with other people, people became super disciplined about what they were doing at home, doing exercise or whatever it was that people were doing. They were doing it with incredible discipline. But as the weeks have gone by, now we're starting to go into level 3. We were in level 4, now we're going into level 3. people's discipline I've seen has started to wane a little bit. I don't like to use the word petered out. And so for me, there are two types of discipline in life. The one is external discipline, and the other is self-discipline. So they're both very important. When Bill Godfrey, a friend of mine, and I rowed across the Atlantic Ocean, this was my second row across the Atlantic, we rowed a race called the Woodvale Transatlantic Rowing Race. It's a 5,500 kilometer race across the Atlantic Ocean rowing. Also in shifts of hour and a half on, hour and a half off, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But every hour and a half, Billy would wake me up, or I would wake Billy up. And this is what I call external discipline. So Billy would say, "Hey, Pete," he would shout from the rowing seat because it's a very definite 90-minute shift. You don't want to row a single minute after that. So he'd wake me up and he'd say, "Hey, Pete, you won't believe it, but we are 90 minutes closer to Antigua," which would be the like, woo, to get me up and get me rowing again. And that's how we did it every single shift. So this is what we call external discipline. I've got somebody saying to me, "Hey, Pete, you need to get up. You need to get going with this." And it's great because we won the race in 50 days and 12 hours. We broke the world record at the time. But now there's a difference. 2 years later, I'm on my solo boat, rowing an hour and a half on, hour and a half off, 24 hours a day for 76 days. There's nobody waking me up at that 3 o'clock in the morning shift, an hour and a half after my previous shift. My hands are raw and blistered almost to the bone. I've got boils on my backside. My alarm clock, just try and picture the scene. Put yourself on a rowing seat in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. The alarm clock is going, you're absolutely 100% alone. You look outside your hatch, outside, it's pitch black, it's raining. The waves breaking over the boat. The boat's getting washed around from side to side. What do? Think about your hands and your buttocks. Think about the suffering that you're enduring. What do? Most people say, "Pete, what are you talking about? Press the snooze button. Have another 5 minutes. Wait till the sun comes up." And you know what? That's fine. If you don't want to win the race, and if you don't want to break the world record. But if you do, you've got to suck it up. And really, we're all facing this right now during this time. I have a lot of matriculants and students who are, and especially matriculants, and I speak to the guys all over the world, and some of them have already finished writing the exams. They're going out into the world, and they're saying, we feel so bad. It's been a build-up to this whole, big matric year, and now we're going off without a big party. You know what, hey, it's tough, but that's the way it is. And we're going to have to suck it up. We're going to have to just we're going to have to show grit during these times. So it's fine to press the snooze button. But if you want to win the race, and if you want to break the world record, you've got to switch that alarm clock off. You've got to get back out into that rowing seat. You've got to put your backside back down on that seat. You've got to curl those hands that are raw and blistered around those oars. And you've got to row for another hour and a half. Why? Because if you don't, your competitors are going to overtake you. That's not your dream, and that's not your vision. But here's the thing with self-discipline. If you press that snooze button, not a single person in the whole world will ever know. Not one. And you know how tempting that is in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean when you've been suffering for days and weeks to press that snooze button? But that's got to be your overriding thought, is that if I press this snooze button, and you've got to remember this as well, once I've pressed that snooze button once on this journey, nothing will ever be the same again. So that whatever vision you have for your life, for the next 5 years, for the next month, for the next 2 weeks, whatever goal you've set yourself, once you've pressed that snooze button, it's almost impossible to come back until the next journey begins. And so pressing the snooze button for me has become a big thing in my life. For that whole row, I never pressed that snooze button once. I rode every single shift as if I was going to win that race and break the world record. I came second in the race, in the solo race. So I really believe that if we want to move away from doing things good to doing things great, we've got to become more and more self-disciplined in what we do. Now, things that we can do right now that'll make us better and more efficient at what we do. And this is the last point that I'm going to be speaking about to you today. It's what I like to call, and you'll hear lots of people talking about it, living in the moment. So what can I do right now to make me a better person, to make me better at the work that I do at my profession, to make me more efficient at what I do right now? And I love, and there are things, and I don't know what professions you're all in, but there are things that we can do right now that'll make us better at what we do. So you've got to kind of work that out for yourself, but this is why it's important. And I love telling this story because it happened during the first row across the Atlantic. Now somehow lost my presentation in this, so I'd love to show you photographs of them. If you join us next week, I'll definitely repeat this story and show you some photographs of it. But we met 2 British Royal Marines at the start of the first row across the Atlantic Ocean. The names were Ben and Orlando. Ben and Orlando were the biggest men I'd ever seen in my life. Up until last year, April, I spoke at Dibili Milifius in the Rates in the Free State, and those guys are the biggest farmers I've ever seen in my life. They were just huge. In any case, up until that stage, biggest guys I'd ever seen. They had the best boat. They just, everything about their whole campaign looked absolutely top class. They walked around the Canary Islands where we started our race from, declaring to the whole world that we're going to win the race, that we're going to break the world record, which is a great mindset to have. But they didn't take us seriously, us 2 South Africans seriously at the start of the race. 2 hours before the start of the race, picture the scene. 23 little boats sitting next to each other in the Canary Islands, just about to start this 5,500 kilometer journey. They come up to us, they shake our hands, they say, Billy Pete, as you both know, we're both British Royal Marines. When we get to the other side in Antigua in the Caribbean, we've got duties to go to in Afghanistan, Iraq. I can't actually remember exactly where, but we're going to have to go off immediately. So by the time you guys get in, we'll probably be gone. I like that because that's a bit of confidence for you. And they said, but don't worry, here's something to remind you of us. You know those bicycle juice bottles? Give a thumbs up if you know. The bicycle juice bottles that you put on a bicycle, they gave us one of those. It was a white bottle with their name of their boat written on it, Go Commando. And they said, here's something to remind you of us. Now, it's an extremely stressful time 2 hours before the start of the race. We didn't think much of it at the time. We shook their hands. We wished them well. We took that bottle. We put it inside our cabin, not realizing how important that bottle was going to become to us later on in the road. And 2 days, so let's fast forward now. We don't have enough time to get into this. But 2 days later, and I'm sorry where we're going with this right now, but this is what happens on expeditions. We realized that going to the toilet over the side of the boat was taking too much time. It was costing us too much time because this is hard work. Picture this, or picture whatever you want out of this scene, okay? And I also don't have photographs in this. So the person who's rowing has to pull the rowing oars in, strap them together, get to the side of the boat, get it done, get it back on the seat, feet back in the rowing shoes, oars out again, and row. 3 minutes minimum. The person who's not rowing has got to stand on the side of the boat. Now the boat's like this, so the person who is rowing can't row anymore. Get it done. That's another 3 minutes. So Billy and I worked out that we were losing about 3 nautical miles a day just on that one thing. Remember, we're out to win the race. We're out to break the world record. We had to do something about this. Obviously, enter the Go Commando juice bottle. So we found that we scrummaged around inside our cabin, found the juice bottle. Now we could use this juice bottle effectively. So it took a bit of practice, but we could be in our seat, get it done inside the bottle, throw it over the side of the boat. The person who wasn't rowing could stand in the middle of the boat, get it done, and throw it over the side of the boat without disturbing the person who's rowing, although it is a bit disturbing for the person who's rowing. But I want to tell you, on a 7-meter rowing boat, after a couple of days, there are no more secrets, definitely. And so here we are, saving 3 nautical miles a day. So you'll say, so Pete, 3 nautical miles, what is that? 1 nautical mile is 1.85 kilometers. What is that? That's nothing. It is. 1 day, it's a chip and a putt. But 50 days could become quite significant. 10 days before this race finished. Oh, by the way, that bottle was perfect for 2 reasons. And the first one was, we worked out quite quickly that 750 milliliters was the perfect amount to contain. And also those bottles have got nice wide heads like that, okay? So a normal little Coke bottle, I don't have one here, with a little, it's just not going to work. Anyway, so 10 days before the race finished, we're still in first position. A boat called No Fear, at that time, we were in first position. A boat called No Fear was 30 nautical miles behind us. Go Commando was 150 nautical miles behind us in third position. 10 days before the race finishes, our satellite phone breaks. No more communication with the outside world. Absolutely gone, dead. We arrive in Antigua, get onto our VHF radios. Within 10 nautical miles of the finish, we find out we're still in first position. No Fear is now 24 nautical miles behind us, but Go Commando has fallen back even further. They're still in third position. They are 5 days behind us. We finished at midnight that night. We celebrated. We got in. Amazing. Woo! Celebrated. We didn't even think about the Go Commando guys. The next day, we come down to our boat. We want to clean our boat up, get it into the container, and spend 2.5 days relaxing and getting rid of as many pina coladas on the island as we possibly can. And when we get to the boat, we realize that we are not going to be there in 5 days' time when they arrive. So we need to leave them something to remind them of us. As we stand on the boat does this, and guess what rolls over the deck? The Go Commando juice bottle. And so we have our perfect gift. So we washed the bottle out as much as we could. We got a permanent marker pen. We wrote in it, "Dear Ben Orlando, well done for the great race. All the best, Bill and Pete." And we left it with the race organizers to give them when they arrived 5 days later. And Billy and I often get together and we talk about the race. And one of the things we talk about is whether they managed to take that bottle and use it or whether they smelt a rat. And I think the latter. Yeah. So I think let's leave it at that. I've spoken for a little bit more than 20 minutes. But I think I'm going to just finish off by being a little bit vulnerable with you. And I think this has happened to a lot of people, especially those people that have had small businesses. Lots of people have taken pay cuts. And I know that in big businesses, most people are starting to return to work. But my career as a speaker and adventurer came to a kind of grinding halt at the beginning of this year. Healthy pipeline of talks. A lot of them with Speakers Inc. and with Duncan, came to a complete stop. It kind of almost vanished overnight. It's worrying. Can we survive it? You know, that's the thing that we go through our mind. Yes, we can. If our debtors pay us, and maybe we can survive a little bit longer. But the fear and the anxiety and the uncertainty have over this last 8 weeks sometimes felt a little overwhelming. The anxiety for many, many, many people in my immediate community and who are substantially more vulnerable, who live in vulnerable circumstances, makes it difficult to breathe sometimes for me. This is exacerbated by the fact that our freedom to recharge our batteries over the last 8 weeks and gain perspective from nature has been severely and drastically curtailed. I'm grateful in this moment for the lessons and the coping skills that I've learned on my expeditions that were byproducts of the storms and the isolation that I have put myself through. This is followed by the memory of the fact that this is not going to be easy this next time. It's going to take courage and discipline and the willingness to embrace suffering. It will take humility to admit that maybe my strategy has been wrong. And maybe it requires a little bit of flexibility and some very stern decision making. Maybe it'll take curiosity to make a complete turnabout in the way I operate, in the way we operate. This cannot be achieved as we go forward in the absence of resilience. And resilience cannot exist in a vacuum because it must be unlocked and ignited by passion. And passion has never, ever been more relevant and critical in our ability to survive and thrive as it is right now.